When I meet a couple, one of my favourite questions is to ask them how they met, and I normally get a very enthusiastic and full response. Occasionally I get a more guarded response, and I conclude at that point that they either met illicitly or at a Coldplay concert. I've always been fascinated by how couples meet, and that's becoming increasingly important in the world for the following two reasons. The first is that the birth rate in many parts of the world is dropping like a stone. China, the country in the world with the largest population, its birth rate has halved in the last 10 years. And in the West, the birth rate of almost every country is nowhere near the replacement rate. Secondly, and I think even more sadly, there is an epidemic of loneliness. And this has profound consequences for housing and mental health. 40% of people in the West now live alone. In my grandparents' day, a quarter of people met through their family, a quarter of people met through school, and a quarter of people met through friends. Notice that in all of these cases, people would have met face to face before building up a relationship with each other. And if you're young and you've only ever known the internet, before the internet, there was advertisements in newspapers and magazines called Lonely Hearts columns, where people could advertise for a soulmate. And I used to devour these. I used to love reading these. And there's one I particularly remember. It was very short. It just said, "Shabby man from Birmingham seeks woman prepared to overlook such trifles." Now, in the last 30 years, because of technological and social changes, there's been a big switch to online dating. And with effect from about 2013, a majority of couples meet online. Now, you might initially think that meeting online is good because it produces a more perfect market, because of the numbers involved. But when you think how that actually operates, to some extent it's a question of looking at someone's photograph. Can you really tell very much about them from a photograph? Or some text which has been written by them about themselves. I'm told, but I couldn't possibly comment, that in these explanations, women sometimes are economical with the truth about their age, and men are less than fulsome about their height. And in case you're wondering, I'm 7'2". The trouble with online dating is you're looking at compatibility before looking to see if there's any chemistry between the two partners. And compatibility is important. Compatibility here, I'm talking about as being roughly the same age, coming from roughly similar background, perhaps having roughly similar outlook on life and leisure interests. But that doesn't guarantee the spark of the initial attraction. And what I'm arguing here is that chemistry is more important than compatibility, because if you don't have chemistry, you're never going to get to checking out the compatibility side. Now, things are changing. Online dating has peaked in the West. It's still quite important. There are still more than 5 million people who use dating apps in this country last year, but it is reducing. The dating app companies have moved to the Far East, where there's greater demand. And there's a switch over to people meeting in joint face-to-face events, such as a charitable event or a social event or a joint cruise or some kind of physical activity. And I think that's wonderful, because, as I mentioned earlier, you need to get the spark of the chemistry, i.e. the immediate mutual attraction between the parties, before you can go further. No one is ever going to propose to someone simply because they got 11 matches out of 20 on a compatibility chart. Now, if I was asked to give advice to anybody looking for a soulmate, it would be the following. Do not get too hung up on what you're looking for. One of the great dangers of life is that we are so used to being able to specify exactly what kind of coffee we want, and if we want anything, if we want to buy anything, it can be delivered within a couple of hours or at the latest tomorrow. We're so used to immediate gratification. Human relationships don't work like that. I can remember a comedy program I saw years ago where some female comedians were mimicking the dating videos that people used to do at that point. And there was a woman saying, oh, well, I want to meet an architect. Oh, and by the way, he has to have his own plane, which, I just thought was a sort of massive over-expectation. Your soulmate, maybe on the other side of the world, may be completely different from what you imagine your soulmate would be. But once you do get together, once there is that spark of mutual attraction, you two can decide how you're going to lead your life. The other piece of advice that I would give everybody is leave the door open to the day-to-day randomness of life. Your future partner may be someone you sit next to on a plane, or maybe is someone who you're sitting next to today. Look of unhappiness on most people's faces, but I think there are a few people who are quite pleased. To conclude, I would like to share with you the advice that I received from someone much wiser than me, my mother. When I was a teenager, my mother often used to say to me that whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, and whatever you're interested in, there's someone out there in the world who's looking for someone just like you. All that you've got to do is get together with them. If you have been, thank you for listening.